Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Vibe with Kai. This is our show. It's called Kyrus Has Friends, where I sit down with the people that inspire me the most, and those people are my friends. Before we get started today, if you like anything that you're watching today, you can visit my website at thevibewithkai.com. You can also follow me on, Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook at The Vibe with Kai. And you can also follow me on TikTok and Snapchat at Kyrus Keenan. I do have a policy. If you take a picture and send me a picture of you smiling on Snapchat, I will send one right back to you because I do feel that smiles are meant to be shared with everybody. So make sure you do that. And if you go online right now, go to my website, thevibewithkai.com. You can get some Vibe with Kai gear. It is on sale, 15% off. You got to act now to get it. But enough about me. Enough about me and my shenanigans. I am sitting here with a very good friend of mine. She is a professor at Princeton University, and she wrote a book, which I have right here, called Beyond Broadway, The Pleasure and Promise of Musical Theaters Across America. She is a good friend of mine, Stacy Wolf. Hi. How are you?
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. And I want to talk to you about what's happening now,
Yes.
given how positive and good vibes you are, because
you know what? It's
a
so
challenging time.
It's really easy to sit in that negative space right now, right? Because we are surrounded by negativity. We are surrounded by fear, and we are surrounded by uncertainty, understandably so. And it's so easy to kind of sit in that negative space. But I do feel that we have to find the hope, and we do have to find the levity, and we do have to find the means to push forward. And it's hard. It's easier said than done, but it's worth it. It's worth it to get out of that negative space.
Yeah. So as we said before we started officially, I really want to hear what you're thinking and feeling about the pandemic and theaters and what theaters should be doing in the future of theaters, and also about Black Lives Matter at this moment, because I think I would say, from my perspective as a white ally or a white person who hopes that I'm an ally for people of color, that it's a really scary moment, but a potentially very hopeful and revolutionary moment. And I'm really curious to hear what you think about those two things.
Absolutely. So, I mean, from a quarantine perspective, I mean, it's been one of the most interesting times of my life, right? And I mean that because we've had to spend so much time alone, like all of us, and there's been a lot of self-reflection because we don't have the normal distractions that we normally have, things like, football or basketball or going to the movies or going to a bar and things like that. So the normal things that we would find ourselves distracting ourselves with, we don't have. So we've had a lot of self-reflection. So from that standpoint, quarantine has been very, very good for me. And I've been working on things that I never thought that I would have time to work on, including this kind of, series. In regards to theater, Stacy, it has been really, really, really interesting as of late with how the Black Lives Matter movement has affected community theater specifically. Because what we're finding now, and like obviously on the Broadway level, we're hearing a lot of stories about racism and injustice and just overall just issues that are going on when it comes with race on Broadway. But what people may not realize is that on the community theater level, it's just as bad, if not worse, because Broadway theaters they're more likely to be held accountable on a public level. But on a community theater level, theaters can do what they want.
Right.
And there's not really much pushback, right? Because like nobody really cares. And as a Black performer, the past couple of weeks, I have had the opportunity to speak with so many different performers and directors and choreographers, and we're starting to speak up now, right? Because we want the same opportunities that a lot of our white colleagues have. And I know you and I have talked a lot about this
so much,
before, especially I'm plugging your book, especially in this book right here,
well, you didn't say that you're a major star of one of the chapters. You're featured very prominently in this book.
I am, and myself and Kat Ross Klein is featured, and Frank Ferreira is featured.
Yeah.
And this is for those of you that don't know. Stacy went around the country and interviewed people just all about theater, particularly community theater, and how it affects these communities and how theaters go about, putting this together. So that's one of the reasons why, Stacy has like such an invested interest, because you wrote a whole book about it. And I think that honestly, with everything that's going on right now, I think you would be fascinated with how much Black actors and actresses and choreographers and music directors are starting to really speak up right now, because it wasn't happening before, because nobody cared or listened.
So does speak up mean that Black artists are going to producers or the people who run the companies and demanding a seat at the table? Or
Yes.
I feel like I've been hearing so many conversations about where does the change happen? And the change happens, yes, but I was listening to something yesterday where people were talking about casting, and someone said, casting is way too late. By the time you get to casting, there are so many decisions that have been made that
Absolutely.
are already
It's one of the final things that's done.
excluding people of color.
Yes.
So where does change happen, and how does change happen from your perspective?
So for me, I mean, from an internal perspective, and I'm talking about for production companies, the change needs to happen with the executive board, right? The people that run the theater. You can't claim to promote diversity if you're not diverse yourself, right? There's a lot of theaters that will say, oh, well, we do one Black show a year. That's good enough, right? Or we celebrate Black History Month. But like, that's not good enough anymore. We don't want to just be like a special occasion anymore. We don't want you to call us when you need a Richie in a chorus line, or a Seaweed in Hairspray, or an Effie in Dreamgirls, or so on and so forth, all these prominent Black roles. We want you to call us when you're doing your Guys and Dolls, when you're doing your Oklahoma, when you're doing these other shows that don't require Black people. And if you go about that process of introducing your theater as a place that's willing to non-traditionally cast something in these white roles, in these predominantly white productions, then you're going to be more likely to get that Black artist that you really need for a show that needs Black people, like Ragtime or Memphis, because people will see that it's not just you putting up a show because it's Black people time. It's you putting up the show because you have continuously shown that Black lives matter in theater.
Right.
And you would think that it would matter more given how liberal and how progressive theater has been, but it's not.
I know, that's the irony, right? That theater supposedly has been a welcoming, open, and diverse space, but it's not. It's been a welcoming, open, and diverse white people space. So I heard someone yesterday, I was watching the, let's see, I think it's called the Broadway Arts Coalition, but it was a 3-day forum about Black Lives Matter on Broadway. And there was a casting director, a man who runs definitely the first and possibly the only casting company specifically about Black, Indigenous people of color. And he was saying, and I thought this was so profound, that it's not enough to say this is a welcoming space, but it has to be a space that says this space was created with you in mind.
Right.
And I thought that was really interesting, because saying this is a welcoming space still presumes this is a white space.
Right.
And if you other people want to come in here, but to say we're gonna have a company, and this company is created, or this company is shifting right now to be a place with true diversity in mind.
Right.
And how can that happen? I mean, what do you? How do you change an institution that's been so and is so white?
Yeah. So I think the first step is acknowledging, right? That I'm going to keep this company nameless for now, but there was a company that I met with this past Tuesday that, has had one person of color on their board since they began in the 50s, right? One, right? So the first step is acknowledging the issue, like putting it out there, being like, hey, this is what we have. This is what this is an issue. We recognize it. Then from there, once you point out the issues, then you can start taking the processes of fixing it. Now that will require you to have, number one, uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
Number two, it's going to require you to reach out to talk to people that you may not normally talk to. You gotta invite these people of color, Black and Latino and Asian. You need to invite these people into the conversation and have a good, open, honest conversation about it. Because if you don't do that, then you can't just have a bunch of white people sitting around talking about what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the one mistake that I think people are making right now is that they're going to find their one Black friend in theater and saying, hey, what can we do? Right? Which is fine, but like, for the people that come to me, I always say to them, look, I don't speak for all Black people. You know, I'm very blessed to work with theaters all over the state of New Jersey and Pennsylvania, New York, and Delaware. Every single one is different. Each one of them has a different demographic. Each one of them does a different type of show. Each one of them has a different type of board. You know? So you have to be able to pull people in from your community. It is community theater for that community. And you need to bring people in and have that honest conversation, because it can't just be one. I don't speak for all Black people. You know, and there are even for some of the meetings that I've been in with predominantly, you know, people of color to talk about the situation, there's been like disputes and you know, in between us, which means that there's just a wide variety of ways that you can go about handling this. I don't think that there is one way to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think the very first thing that every theater should do is acknowledge and then put something in place. And what I'm calling on is for theaters to publicly state what they acknowledge, number one, and number two, say what you're going to do. We're not asking you to solve racism. We can't do that. It's just going to be there. But you can help by publicly stating, this is what we did, this is what we're going to do about it. And then more people will have like Black artists will make their own decision and say, okay, I see what this theater is doing. Mm-hmm. But Stacy, I put up a status on Facebook the other day. I'm not going to work with any theater or any production company anymore that does not publicly state what they're doing to fix the issue. I'm not going to do it, because I know I have a voice and I'm going to use it.
Yeah, you do have a voice. And also, I mean, one of the things that you and I've talked a lot about, and I write about this in the book, is that community theater is a labor of love. Mm-hmm. You have to love theater and be willing to put in the time after hours. Mm-hmm. You're not getting paid, or you're getting a tiny little honorarium, and you have to love it. And to love it, you have to feel valued, and you have to feel like all the different parts of you are valued, and that your community is valued, and that it is a truly diverse place that's working to fight against racial injustice.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
that's the only way. That's the only way.
So, all right, here's the thing that a lot of white people say. Yeah. And that I myself said in the past, until I heard a really good analogy that stopped me of this thing. There just aren't enough X for us to do this show. Or, okay, yeah, we'll do Guys and Dolls and we'll do multiracial casting, but no Black people showed up, or only white people showed up. So what do you say to that?
That's probably, in my opinion, the most pathetic and the most annoying excuse I hear all the time.
Right, but you must hear it all the time.
All the time.
And
so like I'll hear that and I'll say, okay, well, what did you do? And they'll say, well, in our casting notice we said that we're casting all people of color. Okay, but did you reach out to inner city communities maybe? Or if you're doing In the Heights, did you reach out to the Latino community? If you're doing Miss Saigon, did you actively reach out to the Asian community? Right? And because we live, the theater people, I love us, I really do, but we live in this bubble, and we just assume that everybody knows theater. But Stacey, I didn't even discover theater until my freshman year of high school. I
I
knew it
know.
was
And wasn't
there.
it? And wasn't it because of a sports injury put you
Absolutely.
out?
I broke my
Yeah.
wrist. I broke my
Yeah.
wrist. 8th grade going into my freshman year. Right? So like I knew it was there, but like I didn't really pay attention to it. Like it was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's what those kids are doing, right? But I didn't appreciate it. But then somebody introduced me to it and taught me that. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they'll say, well, we tried. Well, keep going. Keep
Yeah.
trying. You know, because there might be 100 people that you reach out to, and 99 of them might be like, nah, I'm good. This is weird. But one of them might be Kyrus Keenan Westcott.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
like, it's worth it. You can't give up. And this is something I said to an artistic director a couple weeks ago. I said to her, I was like, look, your season goes on no matter what. You say that you're going to, you're going to put up this show and you're going to hope to bring in people of color. And if you don't, well, season goes on, show goes
Right.
on.
Right.
People of color don't have that kind of flexibility, you know? So, and theaters haven't needed to do that because it's not a requirement, you know?
Yeah.
It's not a requirement. They don't have to do it. So
Right.
they don't.
Yeah, that's so well put. So the metaphor, the analogy that changed how I thought about this was told to me by a dear friend and a director. She lives in Boston. Her name is Megan Sandberg-Zakian. She's brilliant and amazing, and she actually just wrote a book that's about hope.
Yeah.
All right, now, oh gosh, the title isn't coming to me. Okay, we'll look it up.
Yes.
But it's a wonderful book that's very hopeful and about theater.
Mhm.
And she said that the way white people need to think about finding artists of color, it is like your key. The artists of color are your keys.
Yes.
And your keys are in your house. Your house is the theater. And you look around your house and you don't see your keys. And so you say, oh, I guess I lost my keys, or there are no keys. Well, you have to look. You have to look under the couch. You have to look in the couch cushions. You have to look in the cabinet. You have to look in the drawer. You have to look underneath that stack of papers. Those keys are in that house, but you have to find them. And it might, exactly like you're saying, it might be hard. And you might not find them in the first place you look for them, but they are in your house. Those keys are in your house. And that image, I feel, is so strong because it exactly captures what you just said. You have to keep trying.
You have to.
Just because the first person says no, and also I think we have to look younger and younger. We need to be doing much more work for high school students, middle school students, introducing people to musical theater younger and younger, and making very strong arguments for theater that's by, about, and for people of color, and also the multiracial casting that you're talking about.
Yes, 100%. And in fact, one of the things that I'm personally going to be doing, because the one thing that I know is that, like, I have been in various positions of power to fix this for a while, and I haven't done it, right? So I recognize that I need to step up too, for my community, for my fellow Black artists, right?
But what about the, wait, I'm going to interrupt you. What about the shows? I mean, what about In the Heights? I know you did a ton. I know you did a ton of outreach to cast that show.
Absolutely, tons of outreach for In the Heights. I just directed a production of The Wiz this past fall that had an entire Black cast, 100%. But I also directed like that production of Into the Woods that you shadowed me for. That was an all-white production. I directed another production of Into the Woods this past year as well, an all-white production, right? I didn't need to, I didn't need to go out and look, right? And that's me as a Black man saying that. And like, that is an issue. If somebody like me hasn't stepped up, then there's white allies that don't feel the need to step up either. Because to them, oh, well, we have a Black director, we're good, right?
Yeah.
But that's not good enough. So one of the things that I'm personally going to be instituting from this point forward, to your point about introducing people to theater appreciation at a younger age, is anytime that I direct a show from this point forward or produce a show, I'm going to be reaching out to local high schools and middle schools, and I'm going to be saying, hey, look, I'm directing a show. Do you have any kids that would possibly be interested in maybe sitting in on a rehearsal or
Yeah,
shadowing a director, shadowing my choreographer, shadowing, maybe sitting in on a production meeting? Or you can come to as many rehearsals as you want if you want to just see the process, and then we'll give you free tickets to come see the show. You know,
that's awesome.
like that is the kind of stuff that needs to get done, because this is not going to happen overnight. We're not going to go to sleep tonight and then wake up tomorrow morning and be like, good to go, we solved it, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, to your point, I mean, we need to be introducing these young artists to theater and appreciate it, because when they see that the work that goes into it, they will appreciate it more, and they might want to take that step themselves or become involved. So
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. I love it. I love it. You're challenging me to think of the ways I can, being in a university,
mhm.
reach to younger people and encourage them to get involved in musical
Right.
theater and to see musical theater as something that
And
can
it's
be
hard.
progressive. It
Yeah,
is.
it's
Yeah.
really hard because, like, we always have to remember that we have to put things in context for the people that we're reaching out to, right? For a lot of the people that I grew up performing with and being directed by, they get we've always gotten tons of opportunities to perform and to do things, right? But there's a lot of people that you're going to be reaching out to that don't have that same freedom. Maybe if you're reaching out to a young African American male in high school whose who's raised by a single mom that works two jobs, and so he has to be home every night to take care of his younger sister.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. We always have to keep that in mind. But here's the thing: that just means that we just have to change our ways sometimes. We have to leave this
Mm.
comfort zone, this feeling of being content, and move past it. Because, like, those
Mm.
days are done. We're not in that anymore. We're moving past that. And I will forever be a vocalist for that. Stacey, I've dropped out of 2 productions that I was supposed to do. 2 of them. One I was supposed to direct. The other was the Kelsey Awards, which
Yeah.
we were going to do virtually this year. But I'm at a point now that I'm like, I need to use my time and my voice to help improve things. Because, I mean, you can't keep the same thing going over and over and over again, because then what's the
Yeah.
point? You know?
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Mhm.
So I don't want to not talk about this, but I want to know how and when you think theater is going to come back and what it's going to mean.
Yeah.
And I know I got a survey from Kelsey about,
Mhm.
would you come with a mask? Would you come
Mhm.
if we were sitting at
Yeah.
every other seat?
Yeah.
What would make you come
Mhm.
back to the theater? And I'm just curious. I know you are ever the optimist, but I'm curious
I am.
what you're thinking about the pandemic and theater. Besides the fact that I think probably we would agree that when we can go back to the theater, people are going to be hungrier than ever for
100%.
live
So
performance.
I'm going to answer that from 2 different perspectives. First is as the perspective of an artist, right? I've said this to a couple people before, and I stand by it. Whenever theaters open back up, whatever theater it is, whatever stage it is, big or small, whatever that first show is, whatever that first performance is, it's going to be the best performance that theater, that stage has ever seen. Because
That is true.
artists right now are hurting. We want to perform so bad, and we've taken advantage. We took advantage of the fact that we can perform anytime that we want. Oh, we can just go perform up the street. We can go perform at this theater if we want, right? But now that got ripped out from under us, and we can't do it when we want or how we want, now people are thirsty. And
Yeah.
I tell you, people are never going to be singing louder. They're going to be singing. They're going to be acting their face off because like we took it for granted. We
Right.
took it for
We
granted, and
did.
now
Yeah.
we recognize what life is like without the thing that we love, right? And so from an artist perspective, I'm an optimist, right? I'm gonna actually answer it 3 ways. So I have the artist. I'm also gonna answer it as just an appreciator of art in general.
Mm.
When when the 1920s were around, we obviously had the Harlem Renaissance, right? And the Harlem Renaissance grew from times of despair. I truly do believe that we are going to have a similar type of renaissance coming out of this, because we have a lot of artists. I'm talking singers, painters, dancers, lyricists, authors, all types of artists that are out there right now at home trying to find any way that they can to let loose and get those creative juices flowing, right?
Yeah.
I think that once things, I'm going to put this in quotes, return to normal, we are going to see this evolution of art, right? And then the third way I'm going to answer is as an audience member.
Mm.
We have to recognize that theater may never be the same again.
Really?
The theater experience may possibly not ever be the same again until there's some sort of vaccine or some sort of surefire way to guarantee that you are not going to get this virus.
Right.
There will always be social distancing. And
Yeah.
as an audience member, that's easy, fine. Okay, you walk in the theater, you scan the ticket on your phone, all fine. But then you sit every other seat, right? As a performer, that's going to be hard, because acting, dancing, singing, there is an intimacy there with your counterpart. You can't social distance a giant dance number on stage.
No.
You can't do it. Some of the close physical touch that is required for shows, you can't do unless it's the last 5 years where you can have two people on opposite sides of the stage.
Yeah. That's like, the perfect social distancing show.
It's perfect. And honestly, Stacey, you're probably going to see a lot of that.
Yeah, I think so.
Shows like Songs for New World, you're probably going to see a lot of. You're going to see a lot more smaller shows. And the reason that you're going to see that, especially from the community theater level, is because making money as a production company is hard enough as it is when you do have the opportunity to fill the house. But now going into theater where there's going to be social distancing rules, where you're not going to be allowed to have more than 50% of the capacity, how are theaters going to make that money back?
Yeah.
So that means that they're going to have to pull back. You're going to see a lot more smaller productions. You're going to see a lot more small casts as opposed to big, so we're not going to see theater for a while, but I am hopeful. I am excited for what's to come. It's just not going to be the same for a long time. I think we just have to accept that for now.
Yeah. What are some other shows that you think would be good to do social distancing?
There's going to be a lot of plays, I think, that are happening. Like I feel like sometimes musical theater obviously gets like the push because people want to see a song and a dance and like yay, right? I think we're going to see a lot of 2 to 3 person plays that take place. We're also going to end up discovering a lot of maybe low key shows, musicals perhaps, or ones that haven't gotten their due. Because people just preferred a big song and dance number, but shows like Tick Tick Boom, Jonathan Larson's Tick Tick Boom, which is 3 people. You're going to see a lot of renditions of the last 5 years. I can guarantee that, because it's 2 people and they don't need to be anywhere near each other.
Right.
Songs for New World is another example. Shows like that.
Title of show
is another one. Yeah, absolutely. Like these small casts that don't necessarily have to be on top of each other. You're also going to see a lot of, I think, what I call music appreciation shows, like, reviews, like, Red Hot and Cold, or
Ain't Misbehavin'.
Ain't Misbehavin', or Side by Side, like the Sondheim,
Side by Side by Sondheim.
Yeah, absolutely. Things like that you're going to see a lot of, because you're going to be able. It's cheap to put up. You don't have to do too much choreography wise or anything like that. Everybody gets their own microphone and just sing out. Park and bark is what we call it. Park and bark.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do feel hopeful, Stacey. It's weird. It's really weird. I'm not gonna lie, but I know that we're all going to be better because of this, as long as people wear their masks when they're outside.
I know. Yeah. What do you think about doing outdoor theater? Do you think that could happen at all this summer?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
When
Did you
I did
ever
it,
perform at Washington Crossing?
I did. Actually, my first community theater show ever was at
That place
Washington
is
Crossing.
so beautiful. I mean,
Yes,
I know it's a crazy nightmare. You should
it,
describe for people what it's like
it
there.
was it was really hard. My first show ever was a show called Fame at
Oh,
Washington Crossing Park
wait,
in
Fame the
2000.
musical about the
Fame
high
the
school?
musical, yes,
Oh, that's so
yes.
cute.
And I did that show with the Pennington Players. This was 2003, I want to say,
Yeah,
so about like
yeah.
almost 20 years ago. And it was hot. Oh
It's hot
man,
there.
it was really really hot, and wearing those costumes and dancing, and oh my god, and like the dressing room area, it's like a shack with like
Yeah.
no air
A
conditioning.
shack a shack in a creek with mosquitoes and
Oh my
but it's
gosh.
such a unique and beautiful set. I write
Yes.
about it in my book also.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
chapter about outdoor theaters and
Yeah.
it,
You're
that
definitely going to see
it's
a
a
lot more of that for sure.
yeah, it's a
Mhm.
beautiful place. And right now I don't think anyone is performing there because the
The
company
last I've heard,
that
I know
controlled
there was
it,
a company that took over like a couple
yeah,
years ago, but I think
but
that
they
they
got
might
a
have gone to the
permanent
wayside.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, did they really? Okay.
they
Yeah.
got it. They're called Music Mountain Theater. They're in Lansdale. So
Oh,
they
that's
got
who I know music about. I didn't
yeah,
know that was who was at the
yeah,
park. Okay.
they had been DPAC, the Downtown Performing Arts
Yeah.
Center, and they had a studio space, but then they performed
Right.
at the park. But
Mhm.
then they got a permanent space, so they vacated the park
Yeah.
for all the reasons you're talking
Yeah.
about: in miserable weather and
Yes.
mosquitoes, and it's hot and
It's
it's
so hot.
humid.
Oh my God. But it was also
But it's a
fulfilling.
very beautiful. It's a very very beautiful spot.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I can definitely see more concerts like that, like just park and bar
yeah,
concerts taking place there for sure. For
yeah.
sure.
I
You know.
hope
Yeah.
so. I hope so. And that's also a place, I mean, it's a very, I think it's an 800
It can
seat
hold a lot of
amphitheater.
people.
So
Yeah.
people could be spread out in there pretty
Absolutely.
easily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then and even if they don't want to sit in the main like bowl area, they can bring their own chairs and stuff and then sit, if I remember it correctly, they can if they don't want to sit in like the bleacher things, they can sit in the grass area towards the
Yeah,
back
it
as well
goes
and
way
watch.
back. Yeah.
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 Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's a really nice spot. So I don't know,
Absolutely.
maybe we'll get to do something
I hope so.
before long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How has quarantine been for you?
Um, well, in mid-semester, how's it been? Mid-semester, we had to start teaching online,
Yeah.
and I was teaching a class about gender musical theater, which
Hmm.
was a great group of students, and
Yeah.
they they were fantastic. They were a
Yeah.
joy. But I do so many hands-on activities in my class, even though
Yeah.
it's kind of a theater history
Yes.
criticism class. We do scenes and we do exercises, and
Yeah.
we're always on our feet. And so that was really hard and sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had this whole production season at Princeton, and every show got
Hmm.
canceled. We
Hmm.
actually were doing a production of A Little Night Music that got
Oh, a
stopped
weekend
in
in
the
the
middle.
country.
Yes, it was a wonderful production, directed by a student and
Yeah.
musical directed by a student, all student artists, and
Yeah.
that got stuck in the middle of the middle of
Oh,
their run. So that was really sad.
mm,
So
yeah.
that I mean, and I miss going to the theater.
Yeah. Same.
I just miss this thing that I love so much and that feeds me. And I think people are doing incredible things online. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
seeing very cool things. And
Hmm.
one thing that's been interesting is that all these lectures and a lot of other kinds of activities that normally 10 people come to, now 50 people come to them or 100 people come to them
Yeah.
because things are so much more accessible online.
Yeah.
But I just miss the theater so
Me
much.
too. Yeah.
Because I'm a spectator and a fan and not an artist, I feel like I just kind of have to wait for awesome things to happen, and anything that I see, I grab. But I miss being in the same space in the same
Right.
time, and all the wacky, cliche, true things
Yeah.
that live theater is.
Right. I wanted to quickly ask you about your talk about your book real quick. So once again,
Sure.
it's beyond Broadway, the pleasure and promise of musical theaters across America, and it is available in bookstores near you and on online and all of that. You can just Google it and it'll show up. It is a fantastic book. So you spent like so much time uh, putting this together and interviewing people. What after releasing it? What has the response been like for you? Like, what has it been like? Because like that's a big deal. This is a big deal that you got like a fully published, awesome book out there. What is it?
Yeah.
What is it like to do that, and what's the response you've gotten?
Well, I think what's meant the most to me is when I hear from anyone who reads the book and identifies with it. I've
Yeah,
heard from some of my students who, of course, did high school musicals or summer camp
yeah,
musicals or community theater musicals.
yeah,
And when I wrote the book, I wrote it for the people I was interviewing. I
yeah.
wrote it, I mean, you were my intended audience, and
Hmm.
Frank and Kat and Kitty and all the girls that I interviewed at summer camps,
Yeah,
and all the high school teachers who I interviewed,
yeah.
and the people who I met when I went to visit MTI and the licensors.
Right.
And so
Hmm.
I wasn't writing it for academics. I wasn't
Right.
writing it for my colleagues. I was writing it for my students, but just for normal people who
Yeah.
do theater, who love theater, who go to the theater. And so I think what's meant the most to me is when I hear from someone, and someone out of the blue, or someone who knows me, and said, "Oh, I read your book and it made me cry, or it made me
Yeah.
happy, or I could identify with it, or it was so familiar." So
Yeah.
the response has really been lovely, because I wanted it to reach some of the people that it's reaching. Obviously, it
Right.
was not the greatest time to publish a book, which was just by luck of the draw. But I hope, because
Yeah.
it's not about, even though it's about the 2010s, it's
Hmm.
not so bound to that time, that I
Right.
hope people can still read it and enjoy it. Hopefully
Absolutely.
it will not be over and done. But I
What's
loved every minute of working on this book.
yeah.
I didn't love every minute of the writing, but every minute of the interviewing and talking to people and
Yeah.
sitting in on your rehearsals and all of that, I just enjoyed so much. And when it was over, I had, like most people who write a book, I had 20 times too much material. I could have written this book 20 times with completely different examples in
Yeah.
completely different places. I visited so many places that I never wrote about. I talked to
Right.
hundreds of people who I'd never quoted. So it was hard to put it to bed,
Sure.
and hard to say, okay, this is
Right.
enough. This is, too many words. I'm done with these words. Yeah, yeah.
So so funny story. So I told you, like, I have a pretty large following on TikTok, and there was actually somebody that messaged me on TikTok asking if I was the same Kyrus that's in this book, and they are in the United Kingdom.
Oh my gosh, that's so
They got your book.
awesome.
They were reading your book, and they live in the United Kingdom, and they've been following me and stuff like that, and on TikTok, and they wanted to know if I was the same person that was in
Oh
this
my
book.
gosh, that's so
And I
cool.
was like,
Yeah.
yes, I am, and
Yeah.
Stacy is my friend.
Oh, that's cool. It's interesting, because one of the big debates that I had when I was writing the book, and this is a pretty common discussion among academics who do this kind of ethnographic work that I did, was about whether or not to use people's real names.
Oh, I
Because a
see.
lot of people who do the sort of interviewing that I do don't use people's real names. They don't,
Sure.
they have pseudonyms, and
Right,
the
right, right.
places are not identified. And I wanted to use real names, and I did
Yeah.
not use the real names of any of the children I
Right,
interviewed,
right,
even though some of them wanted me to.
right.
I didn't use any of their real names, but I
Yeah,
did use all the names of the adults, because it was
yeah.
so important for me to
Mhm.
bring attention to the work that you do. So it's
Yeah.
absolutely perfect and amazing that someone recognized your name and
Absolutely.
asked if it was
They just
you.
put two and two together, and I was like,
So
yeah, it was
cool.
great.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. Thank you for that story.
Oh, absolutely. I figured you would get a kick out of that, but
You get a kick out of it.
Stacey, I'm so happy that we got to sit together and
Me
catch up
too.
and chat
Yeah.
and all of that, because I more than appreciate everything that you've done for the theater community, and continue to do, and continuing to be an ally. And what I always tell my ally friends is just to continue to have the conversation, especially when people like me aren't around, like when Black people aren't around. If there's any time that we need an ally, it's then. Because one thing that I'm also discovering, and this is another conversation for another day, is that there's kind of like a showmanship now, where it's like, I love Black people, look at all of my Black friends. And then once they get behind doors, when they don't have to do that showmanship anymore, it's just like,
Yeah.
You know, and my biggest fears, you know, who would have thought that COVID-19 would be the second most important thing in the world right now, right? We have
Right.
this incredible movement, Black Lives Matter movement, and that's why I don't put it past anybody or anything to make Black Lives Matter a secondary issue, a third, fourth issue, because one day it's not going to be cool anymore. There's not going to be any more riots. There's not going to be any more protests, at least not as big as they are now. So it's not going to be this big, growing, fun, you know, exciting, like we're sticking up movement. And that's where we'll really need people to continue to step up and to be allies and to have our backs. And just you having this conversation with me today, you know, like I said, it gives me all of the hope, because you know, it's people like you that we need on our side, very much so.
Well, I will try. I pledge to try to
Yeah,
be a good ally.
yeah, yeah. I appreciate you more than you know. Once again, her
I
book.
appreciate you, and I can't wait to see what you're going to direct next.
Oh,
I will be
absolutely,
there
me
in
too.
the audience with my mask on for sure.
Absolutely. The book is Beyond Broadway, The Pleasure and Promise of Musical Theater Across America. That is my friend, Stacy Wolf, professor at Princeton University. Stacy, thank you so much for sitting
Thank
with
you,
me.
my friend.
Absolutely.
Thank
If
you.
you enjoyed watching all of this, once again, please be sure to visit my website at thevibewithkai.com. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at thevibewithkai, and you can follow me on TikTok and on Twitter and on what else? Snapchat at Kyrus Keenan. I love you all. Thank you so much. As always, good vibes.